The storm had turned the military base into a graveyard of shadows. Rain lashed against the chain-link fences, turning the training grounds to mud. Somewhere near the dumpsters, a sodden cardboard box trembled. Not from the wind, but from the tiny life curled inside it. A German Shepherd puppy, no bigger than a football, pressed himself into the corner of the box. His ribs jutted beneath wet fur, and a jagged tear split his left ear. A reject mark from the K9 unit's brutal assessment. The trainers had deemed him too soft-eyed, too slow, too broken for service. So they'd tossed him out with the day's trash. The pup whimpered as sleet began to pelt the box. His breathing hitched. His body lacked the strength even to shiver properly. He didn't understand why the humans had hurt him, why the world was so cold. He just knew he wanted the pain to stop. Then, footsteps. Heavy boots crunched through the icy puddles, stopping inches from the box. The puppy flinched, squeezing his eyes shut. Another human. More pain. But instead of a kick, a shadow blotted out the rain. The pup dared to look up. Sergeant Marcus Kane loomed over him, his silhouette backlit by a flickering security light. Rain dripped from the brim of his cap, his jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. He was a mountain of a man, broad shoulders, scarred knuckles, and eyes that had seen too much war to still look human. For a long moment, man and pup stared at each other. The puppy's ears flattened. Marcus's breath fogged the air. Then, with a sound halfway between a sigh and a curse, Marcus crouched. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. Up close, the pup could see the flecks of gray in Marcus's stubble, the old burn mark snaking up his neck. The man's calloused fingers hovered over the pup's torn ear, but didn't touch. The puppy braced for pain, but Marcus just exhaled sharply and shrugged off his jacket. "You're coming home, soldier." The words were rough, but the hands that scooped him up were careful. Marcus tucked the pup against his chest, where the heat of his body seeped through the soaked uniform. The puppy's nose pressed into the fabric, smelling gunpowder, sweat, and something warmer underneath. Safety. As Marcus straightened, a voice barked from the barracks doorway. "Kane! What the hell are you doing?" Corporal Riggs stood there, arms crossed. "That the washout from the K9 trials?" "Sir, you know the rules. If they don't make the cut, they don't stay." Marcus didn't turn around. "Rules don't say what happens after." "It's a dog, Sarge, not a charity case." For the first time, Marcus's grip tightened. Not enough to hurt, but enough to make the pup feel the tension in his arms. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. Deadly. "Funny. They said the same thing about me after Kabul." Silence. Riggs shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew about Marcus's discharge, how he'd carried 2 wounded civilians through a firefight, disobeying orders. How the brass had called him too emotional for command. The puppy licked Marcus's thumb. Without another word, Marcus turned and walked away. The pup cradled like something precious. The sleet turned to snow behind them, burying the box, the base, the past. By the time they reached Marcus's truck, the puppy had stopped shaking. He didn't know what home was, but the rumble in Marcus's chest as he said it sounded like a promise. And for the first time in his short, bruised life, the pup dared to hope. The desert sun blazed over Fort Carson, turning the barracks' aluminum roofs into shimmering sheets of fire. At 0500 hours, when the first bugle call sliced through the morning haze, 2 figures moved in perfect sync where others stumbled awake. Marcus Kane, now a grizzled sergeant first class, laced his boots with mechanical precision. Beside him, Ghost, no longer the trembling scrap of fur from the dumpsters, but a 90-pound German Shepherd with a coat like polished gunmetal, stretched into a downward dog pose, his claws clicking against the concrete floor. The dog's amber eyes never left Marcus, tracking his every move like a living shadow. Their routine was sacred. 1. Marcus's left sock went missing. Ghost's signature prank, the dog's tail thumping against the footlocker as he guarded his prize. 2. Marcus pretended not to notice, but always accidentally dropped a second sausage from his breakfast tray. 3. Ghost inhaled the treat, then dutifully spat the stolen sock onto Marcus's lap, as if to say, "We both know you'd forget to change them otherwise." That morning, during urban combat drills, the colonel ordered a hostage rescue simulation. Ghost, trained to perfection, was meant to breach the mock building last, but when Marcus took a staged hit, slamming onto the fake concrete with a grunt, something snapped. A photograph fluttered from Marcus's vest pocket. Sarah Kane, his late wife, smiling in her nurse's scrubs, the only personal item he carried. Ghost broke formation. He darted past the stunned cadets, skidded to Marcus's side, and gently retrieved the photo with his teeth. The colonel's whistle shrieked, "Kane, control your damn dog! He just blew the entire op!" Marcus rose slowly, dust coating his fatigues. Ghost sat at attention, the photo held delicately in his jaws, Sarah's face untouched by saliva. The battalion held its breath. "He's family, sir," Marcus said, voice quieter than a cocked hammer. The colonel's face purpled. "That animal is a liability. One loose trigger and—" "Ghost!" Marcus snapped his fingers once. The dog dropped the photo into Marcus's palm, then pressed his flank against his human's thigh, a living barricade between Marcus and the colonel. A low growl vibrated through Ghost's chest, not loud enough for disciplinary action, but just audible to the men nearby. The message was clear. "Try me." That night, Marcus lay on his bunk, staring at the photo taped above him. Ghost's weight settled across his feet like a living blanket. Outside, the Colorado wind howled through the razor wire. "You're the only thing keeping me human," Marcus whispered. Ghost's ear twitched. He didn't need to understand the words. He knew the tremor in Marcus's voice. The dog wriggled upward until his muzzle rested on Marcus's chest, directly over the scar from the IED that had killed Sarah's convoy. Marcus's calloused fingers found the notch in Ghost's torn ear, the one from the cardboard box years ago. Two broken things, glued together by something deeper than orders. Somewhere in the darkness, a soldier coughed. A toilet flushed. Life went on. But in that narrow bunk, Ghost exhaled warm breath against Marcus's neck, and for the first time since the funeral, Marcus Kane didn't dream of fire. The goodbye had been all wrong from the start. Marcus stood stiffly in Liam's cramped farmhouse kitchen, his duffel bag already by the door. Outside, an early winter storm coated the Wyoming pines in ice, making the branches groan like old bones. Ghost sat at attention between them, his gaze darting from Marcus to Liam and back again, his nostrils flaring at the unfamiliar scent of his owner's anxiety. 8 months, tops, Marcus lied, rubbing Ghost's ears too hard. The deployment notice in his pocket said 12. "You'll be chasing rabbits and stealing Liam's bacon in no time." Ghost whined, low in his throat. He'd never been apart from Marcus, not since that rain-soaked night at the base. The dog pressed against Marcus's legs, as if his weight alone could anchor him here. Liam, barely 20 with his brother's sharp jaw but none of his hardness, forced a smile. "Hey, I make better bacon anyway." He reached for Ghost's collar, and the dog growled. Not at Liam. At the duffel bag. At the future it represented. Marcus knelt, forehead touching Ghost's. "Guard the fort, soldier." Then he was gone, the taillights of his truck swallowed by the storm. December 23rd, 2:17 a.m. The cold was the kind that crept into dreams. Liam stirred under his quilt, half convinced he'd imagined the crash from downstairs. Then glass shattering. Ghost was already at the bedroom door, his hackles raised, a soundless snarl baring his teeth. No bark, no warning. Tactical silence. Liam fumbled for his phone. 911. 1 bar of service. "Police! "We have a—" The door exploded inward. 3 men, masks, crowbars, the reek of meth and sweat, filled the doorway. The leader's pistol swung toward Liam. Ghost moved like black lightning. He went for the gunman's wrist first. Crunch. Then pivoted to the second intruder's thigh, teeth meeting denim and flesh. The third man screamed, "Fucking dog!" and fired wildly. The bullet struck Ghost mid-leap. No dramatic yelp. Just a wet thud as 90 pounds of muscle hit the hardwood, skidding into the dresser. Blood sprayed the wallpaper in an arc. The leader stepped over Ghost's twitching body, gun leveled at Liam's forehead. "Where's the safe, kid?" Liam's vision tunneled. Ghost wasn't moving, wasn't breathing. Then, a rasping gasp. Ghost's chest rose, fell, rose again. The second intruder clutched his bleeding leg. "Finish the mutt!" The leader's sneer was the last thing Liam saw before he lunged, tackling the man with all 140 pounds of his farm boy weight. They crashed into the nightstand, the gun spinning away. "Run, Liam!" The voice wasn't Liam's, wasn't human. It was the guttural command in Ghost's eyes as the dog somehow found his feet and launched himself at the leader's throat. The gunshot was deafening. Blackness, silence. Then, drip, drip, drip. Liam's ears rang. His cheek stung where splinters had embedded in his skin. The leader was gone. So was the gun. And Ghost. The dog lay on his side, one paw outstretched toward where Liam had fallen. His chest was a ruin of red, but his tail gave a single feeble thump when Liam crawled to him. "Oh God! Oh God, no!" Liam ripped off his hoodie, pressing it to the wound. Ghost's breath bubbled against his hands. Somewhere downstairs, the intruders' shouts faded into the night. They'd fled, but Liam barely heard. He was too busy screaming into his dying phone. "Help us! Please, he's dying!" And in the blood-smeared dark, Ghost's eyes never left Liam's face. Just as they'd never left Marcus's. Waiting. Protecting. Always. First light came like a betrayal. The eastern sky bled pink over the Wyoming snowfields as Ghost dragged himself forward by his front paws alone. His hind legs left twin smears of crimson in the snow, a gruesome breadcrumb trail stretching back to the farmhouse, now barely visible on the horizon. Every inch forward cost him a whimper that misted in the frozen air. Internal thoughts in italics. Not Liam. Not Liam. Must get help. His claws were cracked down to the quick from clawing at the neighbor's door before he'd realized he needed to keep moving. The cold had numbed the bullet wound in his chest, but now the snow was melting against his belly, the water mixing with his blood to create pink slush that soaked his fur. 2 miles might as well have been 200. Somewhere around the halfway point, Ghost's vision tunneled. The world reduced to 1, the next paw forward 2, the scent of wood smoke from the Johnson farm 3, the fading image of Liam's pale face in the wreckage. His body failed him 3 times before reaching the cattle gate. First collapse. His front legs buckled at the frozen creek. Ice cracked beneath his weight as he plunged into knee-deep water. The shock of cold revived him just enough to crawl up the opposite bank. Second collapse. The old oak tree. He mistook its shadow for a human figure and tried to bark. Only a frothy bubble of blood emerged. He rested his muzzle against its roots for what felt like hours, but was likely minutes. Third collapse. The final 100 yards. Ghost's vision whited out entirely. He operated on muscle memory alone, his body moving while his mind floated somewhere above, watching this broken animal drag itself toward salvation. When the Johnsons' farmhouse finally loomed into view, Ghost had just enough strength to knock over a metal milk pail with a weak swipe of his paw, collapse directly onto their welcome mat, leave a perfect paw print in blood on their white door before consciousness slipped away. Meanwhile, the aftermath. Sheriff Hayes nearly missed the trail at first. The early morning sun glinting off the snow made the blood difficult to see until he noticed. Every third pine sapling had faint red smears at nose height. Melted snow patches where a large body had rested. A single dog tag caught on a barbed wire fence. The scene at the farmhouse would haunt him for years. Liam unconscious but breathing beneath the overturned kitchen table. A perfect circle of blood where Ghost had lain before his impossible journey. 3 sets of boot prints fleeing toward the highway. The vet's office. Noon. Medically, this makes no sense, Dr. Calloway muttered as she worked. The X-ray showed. The bullet lodged millimeters from Ghost's spine. 3 broken claws. Hypothermia, severe enough to kill a human. When the EKG flatlined the first time, her assistant reached for the paddles. Dr. Calloway stopped him. Wait. A weak but steady heartbeat reappeared on its own. It happened again during surgery. And again, the dog's heart restarted itself. The vet tech would later swear he heard whispered words in the static of the heart monitor. Good boy. Syria. Same moment. Marcus was cleaning his rifle when the Red Cross officer appeared. He knew before the man spoke. Knew from the way the birds had gone silent at dawn. The coffee that had tasted like blood that morning. The nightmare he'd had of Ghost as a puppy, shivering in that box. The message said only, Liam attacked, Ghost critical, call home. The sound that tore from Marcus's throat brought his entire unit running. He collapsed to his knees, his fingers digging into the desert sand as if he could reach through the earth itself, to where his dog was dying. I was supposed to protect him. The words echoed off the barracks walls, carrying across the base. Some of the younger recruits would later say it wasn't entirely human, that it sounded more like the howl of a wounded animal than a man. In that moment, Marcus wasn't Sergeant Kane. He was just a broken man who had failed the only creature that had ever looked at him like he was worth saving. Back in Wyoming, as the vet stitched the last suture, Ghost's tail twitched in his unconscious state. In his dreams, he was running. Not away from death, but toward something. Toward someone. The trail of blood in the snow was already being covered by fresh powder, but it didn't matter. The message had been delivered. Ghost had kept his promise. The base commander had to sedate him. Marcus came to in a commercial airliner's cramped seat, his fingernails embedded in the armrests, his uniform reeking of sweat and vomit. 36 hours of layovers and flight changes had reduced the decorated sergeant to a hollow-eyed specter. The stewardess kept shooting him nervous glances, especially when he began whispering to the empty space between his boots. Hold on, boy. Just hold on. The taxi ride from Denver to Silver Creek took 2 eternities. Marcus counted each mile marker like a prisoner counting days. When the Johnsons' farmhouse finally appeared, its porch light burning like a beacon in the twilight, Marcus was out of the car before it fully stopped, his duffel bag abandoned on the seat. Liam met him at the door, his left arm in a sling, his right eye still swollen shut. The brothers didn't speak. They didn't need to. Liam simply stepped aside, nodding toward the living room where a gasp tore from Marcus's throat. Ghost lay on a nest of blankets, his once glossy fur matted with medicine, his hind legs wrapped in thick bandages. The dog's head snapped up at the sound of that familiar footstep, his tail thumping weakly against the floor. Thump, thump, thump. Marcus collapsed beside him, his combat-hardened hands trembling as they traced. The new scar along Ghost's ribcage, the IV port taped to his front leg, the way his back legs lay utterly still. Hey, soldier," Marcus choked out, pressing his forehead to Ghost's. The dog's breath was warm against his lips. Alive, alive, alive. But when Marcus gently lifted him, Ghost's back end hung limp like a broken toy. The vet's words echoed in Marcus's skull. The bullet nicked his spine. He'll never walk again. Midnight at Willow Creek. Marcus carried Ghost to their spot, the flat rock overlooking the fishing hole where they'd spent countless summer afternoons. The winter air bit through Marcus's jacket as he sank to the ground, cradling Ghost in his lap like something precious. The dam broke. Hot tears dripped onto Ghost's muzzle as Marcus rocked back and forth, his voice splintering. "You gave everything, and I wasn't there. I promised." A rough tongue licked his wrist. Ghost was staring up at him with those golden eyes, the same eyes that had watched him from that cardboard box years ago. And in them, Marcus saw no regret. No accusation. Just quiet devotion. Metal screamed at 3 a.m. Liam found Marcus in the barn hours later, surrounded by dismantled bike parts, a stolen wheelchair from the clinic donation pile, bloody knuckles from forcing stubborn bolts. Marcus didn't look up as he welded the final support bar into place. He always hated being carried. When dawn painted the sky, Marcus knelt before Ghost and strapped the makeshift wheelchair to his body. The dog hesitated, confused by the strange contraption, until Marcus pressed their foreheads together. "Now I carry you." Ghost's first steps were clumsy. The wheels caught on the rug. The harness chafed. But when Marcus opened the front door to the sunrise, something miraculous happened. Ghost lunged forward, his powerful front legs propelling him into the yard, the wheels bouncing over frozen grass. He turned to look at Marcus, his tongue lolling in a doggy grin, as if to say, "See? We're still a team." And as Marcus sprinted after him, laughing through tears, the winter air no longer felt quite so cold. The hill remembered them. Each evening when the sun bled gold through the Wyoming pines, the same ritual unfolded with the quiet precision of a military parade. Marcus would buckle Ghost into his customized wheelchair, the metal now worn smooth from daily use, and begin the slow ascent up the winding trail behind the farmhouse. Today was different. Marcus felt it in the way Ghost's ears pricked forward at the jingle of his harness, sharper than usual. Saw it in the determined set of the dog's shoulders as they reached their weathered observation rock. The sunset painted the valley in molten copper, just like it had every evening for the past 7 months, but something hummed in the air between them, an electric current of anticipation. "Easy, soldier," Marcus murmured as he unclipped Ghost's wheelchair. The dog's hind legs still dragged uselessly, but his front paws kneaded the sun-warmed stone with restless energy. Marcus settled cross-legged beside him, one calloused hand automatically finding its place between Ghost's ears. The other pulled a worn photograph from his breast pocket, Sarah, smiling forever in that frozen moment before the IED. "She'd have loved you," Marcus said, tracing his thumb over the dog's battle-scarred ear. "Stubborn bastard that you are." Ghost responded by shoving his wet nose against Marcus's cheek, leaving a trail of slobber that made them both huff a laugh. The wind carried the sound down the valley as the sun dipped lower, setting the autumn leaves ablaze. Then, a tremor. At first Marcus thought he'd imagined it, but Ghost's front legs were definitely shaking now, his claws scraping against stone as he attempted the impossible. "Whoa!" Marcus dropped the photo as Ghost lurched upward, his entire body quivering with effort. The dog's back legs remained limp, but his front end rose in a jerky push-up, muscles standing out in sharp relief beneath his fur. Marcus's breath caught. He'd seen Ghost try to stand before, dozens of painful attempts that always ended in frustration. But this was different. There was a terrifying purpose in Ghost's amber eyes as he locked gazes with Marcus. "Watch me." Marcus was on his knees in an instant, hands hovering just beneath Ghost's chest, not touching, never interfering with a soldier's mission. The wheelchair lay forgotten as Ghost managed to hold himself up for 3 glorious seconds before collapsing. "That's it," Marcus whispered, voice raw. "That's my boy." Ghost panted heavily, but his tail thumped once, again. So they tried again, and again, each attempt lasting a heartbeat longer than the last. On the sixth try, Marcus finally caved and slid his palms beneath Ghost's chest, taking half his weight. "One step at a time," he murmured into the dog's fur, inhaling the familiar scents of leather and medicine and home. And then, miracle. Ghost took a single shuffling step forward, his useless back legs dangling as Marcus supported him. Just one, but it was enough to send Marcus's tears splashing onto the rock between them. The sunset reached its crescendo, bathing man and dog in liquid gold. From a distance, their silhouettes might have looked whole. Marcus's broad shoulders hunched protectively over Ghost's determined form. Two broken creatures leaning together to make something unbreakable. As twilight settled, Marcus didn't reach for the wheelchair. Instead, he gathered Ghost into his arms like something precious and began the walk home, the dog's warm weight a comfort against his chest. "Tomorrow," he promised into the velvety darkness, "we'll go farther." And when the camera finally pulled away, lingering on the empty wheelchair silhouetted against the dying light, the message burned itself into the viewer's soul. Some heroes don't walk away. They learn to walk differently.